We are live. Welcome to the Friday happy hour edition of Elevate Your Grind. Today's show is going to be a little bit different, folks. I am lucky today that I actually have a real friend on the show, someone that I've known for years, someone that I text with randomly, not just about business stuff, someone that when I land in Denver, he's one of the first phone calls I make. Guys, it's Friday. It's the weekend. I know it's COVID-19, but let's all relax. Charles and I are going to be having a little bit of a drink, and I know I just said my guest's name, but I'll get into who he is in a second. But we're going to enjoy ourselves. We would be enjoying cannabis, but we're both inside. Not smart to do, especially when you got family around. So no cannabis drinks yet in Florida. We're going to share a little drink. We're all going to relax. We're all going to have a little bit of fun. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, you want to interact with us, let's give it a shot. I'll have my phone up. I'll be reading questions. Feel free to chime in on anything we're talking about. But my next guest, if you've ever been to a cannabis conference, you've read his publication. He is the CEO of Innovative Properties Worldwide. He's the editor-in-chief of Cannabis in Tech Today and Innovation in Tech Today. And he's an all-around great guy. If you've ever been to a conference, you've met him. I'm sure you've had a great experience. Please welcome my guest and my friend, Charles Warner.
Hey, thank you so much, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start calling you Chuck because I know that's what you go by. But I just recently had the honor of being on your podcast, and we had a ton of fun, and I thank you for that. But, you know, I learned during that process that I am not doing things right. And folks, we'll go into the fun of podcasting here, but you have an Adam. You guys have a team. You've got some great like music and everything. You guys are doing great there. And the guests that you're getting, I mean, shit, you had Tommy Chung on your podcast.
Yeah, listen, we're just kind of making it up as we go as well. I think like everybody is right now. And, you know, as long as you can have an engaging conversation, I think people in cannabis are interesting. So, you know, that's half the battle right there is having interesting people that you can have on and, you know, chop it up with.
No, I 100% agree with that. And we've been lucky to get a lot of, we've actually gotten a few of your guests on the show, David Tran, and then, you know, I'm friends with Mike Koner as well. I know that you had him on the podcast. So I think we're just picking up your crumbs, but, you know, you guys are killing it. So, you know, when COVID-19 hit, did you all just say, okay, things are a little difficult. Let's just start hitting the web? How, you know, or I know you're doing the podcast before, kind of give me that thought process as this came around, because I know you're very big about putting some good out there while this whole, you know, pandemic is occurring.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Todd. So when this all started kicking off, ironically enough, it really started happening at the last event I ever went to. And I want to write a piece online, and I want to call it The Last Great Event, because it was the Emerald Science Conference in San Diego. And that's on, you know, Coronado. It's a gorgeous setting. It was a really cool event. I mean, science, you could geek out over cannabis. It was incredible. But while that event was going on, out the corner of my eye, I was seeing on the news about this coronavirus thing. And it really just started kicking off, you know, right then and there. So we finished the event, we came home, and like everybody else, you just start, you know, you start seeing it kind of build up on the news, and you start wondering, okay, what are we going to do? And what we decided over here was, you know, first of all, we're like, let's just take a moment and observe. And after a few days, we realized, look, it's up to us to decide what this means. You know what I mean? Like it's happening, and I can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. You know, hopefully scientists and doctors and researchers and really smart people are all working together. But we just said, what can we do? What do we have in our toolbox that we can do? Well, we put out good content. We care about science. We care about tech. We can get good guests, so we can pick their brain. And so, yeah, we realized we lost Barnes and Noble. We lost our events. We had to come up with a new way to get content out, and people are consuming a shitload of content right now. Website traffic, we set records last month. Podcast downloads off the chain. We're doing some webinars and stuff. So what we just did was we pivoted, and we said, how can we help? I don't know, man, give people some good information to help them make decisions during this time. And, you know, we still got our magazines. We're still printing them to the subscribers. Shout out to the subscribers. But honestly, you know what, man? We just we want to help, and even if it means we don't get any more advertisers and we don't sell any more magazines and anything like that, and then we're going to go out, swing, and help in the industry, and then maybe I'll come looking for a job with you.
Well, you've always got a place with me, man.
You got a guest house, Todd?
What's that?
You got a guest house there? Can you put
I
me up?
do. We even have a podcast studio in the house, as you can see. So, you can pick up your show right from here.
I love it.
Yeah, man, we did the same thing. When COVID hit, Robert and I kind of met, and I'm like, we just got to pump out content. And Robert had the wherewithal to say, okay, what exactly does that mean? But we've been doing 2, 3. I mean, there's one week we did 5 podcasts in a week, and that was incredible that we're able to get that many people that want to be on the show and want to put information out there. And I don't know if you've seen it, and you're in a much different cannabis community than I am in a cannabis economy, but our MMTCs, as we call them here, really stepped up to make sure that we were continuing to educate the public and continuing to get the information out there. And, we get emails every day from quality, high-level people that want to be on the show and want to make sure that the information is being out there. We had, I think Jeff Finnerty from Grow Healthy on, who's talking about how they're hiring. We've had multiple people from Trulieve are talking about how they're hiring. And, I think it's incredible that these cannabis companies are really going to be potentially who saves the economy, especially in Denver, where you guys actually tax it and the municipalities make money off of it. Are you seeing that where you are?
Yeah, I think that this is the opportunity where you take an industry like cannabis that forever was underground and forever you got locked up and thrown in jail, and it was bad news for everybody. Remember, it was bad for the community. Cannabis is bad. It's bad, right? And now all of a sudden, in the middle of a pandemic, if you can create a job, or you can do some, some testing in a lab, or you can provide tax revenue, or you provide a product that gives people relief and medicine, then all of a sudden, man, cannabis comes out of this looking like a real productive member of the community. And I think that that's a cool maturation, if you will, of the industry. And I also think it's cool just to see everybody kind of step up and come together, do what they can. There's a lot of cannabis companies have pivoted, and they're making PPE or hand sanitizer or things like that. I just think that's cool, that everybody kind of picks up a rifle and mans a post, and we're all in this fight together. I think it's cool to see cannabis take that stand.
Yeah, and that's always what has blown my mind about situations like this. It's not the politicians, it's not the leaders that are making decisions in up in Washington, up in Tallahassee for us, but the people, the entrepreneurs, the companies that are innovating to make sure that people get what they need. And it's incredible to watch. Now, I have a bunch of stuff that I want to get into with you, but I'm going to stop a second. We're plugging a panel that you're going to be on. So May 14th, we have our next C-Lab panel. Our next C-Lab event. It's our regularly scheduled program. It's going to be at 6 p.m. If you want to check it out, it's www.joinclab.com. Charles is going to be featured on that panel. It is a Meet the Media panel. We have Charles. We have John Small of Green Entrepreneur, Charles Felix of Cannabis News Florida, Dury Ross of Dury and Company, and then Sam Gross of the Miami Herald. And I think it's going to be a great event. So I want to make sure that we promote that. And that, we let you know that if you want to see Charles or more of Charles and you like what he has to see today, he's going to be part of our panel. So today we are actually going to allow 10 of you each, for 10 guests of mine and 10 guests of Charles. If you guys want to attend the event, go to www.joinclab.com, and in the guest of section, enter my name or Charles's name, and you can come for free as one of our guests. So Charles, I'm giving away all your guest passes here. But I want to get a little bit into your background because it's very interesting, right? You started out, you're a veteran, right? You started out in the military, got out of the military, and just crushed it in media. So, talk to me a little bit about your background, your story. How did you become, build your media empire and then all of a sudden fall into the cannabis space?
That's a freaking really weird story that I got here, and it was definitely not a straight line. In high school, I was on the newspaper, and in college, I took journalism, and mostly because it was easy. And, in high school, I could get my friends out of class, doing a story and stuff. And then we could, just go and ditch or whatever. So it wasn't anything that I took very seriously. And then right after high school, I didn't get a scholarship or anything like that to pay for college. So I let my uncle pay for it, Uncle Sam, and went and joined the Army at 18. And I was in a rapid deployment force, light infantry. I was a M60 machine gunner. So I carried a 32-pound machine gun around my neck,
Wow.
that Rambo gun. I did that for 3 years. And then all of a sudden I started going, college sounds pretty good right about now. And got out, went to college. I was a bartender. I saw that movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, and I said, this is the way forward. So I went to
Very, very
college.
inspiring.
I bartended. Yeah, I made it my mission to try everything behind the bar so that I had good, knowledge to pass on to my people there. And I didn't really think much about media or magazines or journalism or anything like that until it was right when Y2K happened. Remember when the whole world was going to end in 99 to 2000? It was
Yep.
doomsday. It was all over, and then we woke up the next day, and the world was still here. I ended up getting a job selling advertising for a company that did sports publications for Major League Baseball. And all of a sudden, I got to work with big events, sports, big sports fan, and companies, and bringing them together. And that was kind of the beginning of my sort of on the job training, as far as with really high end publications, events, and corporations, and getting them all together. And I did that for a couple of years, and then the sports was fun, but 2008 happened, and the whole
Yep.
world kind of collapsed, and I just sat at home and sort of licked my wounds for a little bit, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing magazines anymore. I'm out. But kind of like on The Sopranos, every time I try to get out, it pulls me back in. And so we launched a tech magazine about 5 years ago. It was Innovation in Tech Today. And we weren't really sure what we were doing, but then a couple years later, we had a couple more tech magazines. That would be Cannabis and Tech and Residential Tech. So I went from journalism in high school to the Army to selling sports to now where we are today, and we've got some really nice publications in good niches, but they're not just magazines. We got podcasts and email marketing, and we tie in with events and do all that stuff too. So um, you know it's weird how we end up where we end up, and everybody's got an interesting story. I had no plans on being where I am right now, but I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun, and I get to work with a lot of cool people.
Oh man, I love your story, and I think it's really cool. And to me, veterans are some of the best people you can hire and get behind, because they just have this work ethic that is unmatched, right? I always shout out a good friend of mine, Justin Gilfus. I worked for him for a little bit, and he was one of the best managers I ever had, best boss I ever had, best CEO. Still a good friend of mine, and love the veteran community. As I understand it, I know that you've been looking to get into helping veterans get access to cannabis. I know you and I were supposed to kind of look into that together, but I dropped the ball. Are you still on that path?
Yeah, I think that I've got kind of two soft spots when it comes to nonprofits and charities and stuff like that. It's kids, don't mess with kids, help kids, and veterans. Let's do more for veterans, because I think veterans are. You're right. It's a really good group of people, and they are so used to, like, we ask so much of them, and they understand that, and we pay them so little, and then after it's done, we nickel and dime all the benefits forever. It's such a unique group that they're willing to give their lives and sacrifice, for really crappy pay, and they do
Yeah.
it because of the it's the camaraderie, and it's the sense of service. And those are, overall, they're good damn people. They're just they're hardworking, red-blooded Americans, and I hate to see them get the shaft. And I think that it's really bad that we have 22 veterans a day that commit suicide, and I think that we can do better for them. I think I saw a statistic that, like, I don't know, a quarter to half of the homeless people are veterans, and I just think that we can do better. And I think that the VA tries, but they are overwhelmed, and it's easier for them to just give a pill to a veteran that comes in that's having some kind of issues. And I think that it's important that cannabis can be something that that they can make available to veterans, because I think it can help a lot of people. And I also think that it's got a lot less side effects than some of the stuff that they're getting right now. And I'm a common sense guy, Todd. If it makes sense, then I want to roll with it. And this is something that I think makes sense. Veterans should have access to cannabis without worrying about losing their right to, have a firearm, or losing some kind of federal benefits or pensions that they have because they're worried about being drug tested. So I think we've got a long ways to go, but I think it's a common sense kind of thing that everybody can get behind. What do you think?
I couldn't agree with you more, and I can go down this rabbit hole extensively and take up an entire podcast on it. Right? When you look at veteran community, it's a very unique group of people,
Hmm.
and I have a whole theory about this. But you get somebody and you take them into an organization that essentially trains them to be a warrior, right? A true warrior. They're not worried about political correctness. They're not worried about feelings or anything else. Their job is to be a warrior, right? Because when you're out there, that's what you have to be. There's no compassion on the battlefield. And I am not a veteran. I have no experience. So I'm just speaking from what I've heard and everything else, but this is my view. And then all of a sudden they get out and you want them to be a normal member of society. You know,
Hmm.
you wire them to be a warrior, to be on edge, to make sure, everything is a potential threat, to check out their surroundings. And then they get out and we're just like, okay, welcome back, go get a job. Well, I'm not, I'm good at being a warrior, right? And I know the military trains people on other things as well, but the main thing they're trained for is to be a warrior, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to see some kind of great transition program. Some people need it, some people don't. And then we look at the wear and tear that it takes on your body. I mean, you're there for at least 4 years, and we're all up in arms like the MLB needs to drop cannabis, the NFL needs to drop cannabis, the NBA needs to drop cannabis. These people need to treat their pain with cannabis because the opiates aren't working. Well, there's a lot more veterans than we have professional athletes, right? There's a lot more members of the military than we have professional athletes. And we're still giving them the same opiates that the athletes are complaining about, right? And they don't have the ability to spend $1 million a year on recovery for their body like LeBron James does, or like Kyrie Irving or anybody
Personal
else.
chefs and trainers and all these people attending to them.
Even just physical therapy, right?
Hmm.
So you have someone who's put a massive toll on their body. Like you said, you're carrying a massive machine gun around your neck, plus the ammo, plus the rest of the equipment, daily for 4 years. And it's not just when you're on patrol, it's when you're training. The wear and tear on your body over those 4 years, I would love to see some kind of experimentation around it, because I think the veterans are just as important as our athletes, in that matter, right? I think it's very important. I've mentioned on the show before many times that my wife is an addiction counselor, and I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say this, but she's had a ton of veteran clients that they just want to manage their pain, and next thing you know, they're addicted to opiates, and it's just not a good situation.
I think one thing that I find that it's fascinating about veterans as a group, and then how it compares to all of us as a whole, is there's an author named Sebastian Younger, and he wrote a book called Tribe. And basically the premise of it is that people have, humans have evolved throughout time, throughout history, in tribes. 20 to 30 people, we have figured out how to adapt in mountains, in jungles, in deserts, in the snow, like, because we had a tribe, and everybody in that tribe played a role. Everybody had something to do, so they felt part of the greater whole. And what he talks about in his book Tribe is how today everybody is so, and this came out before corona, but everybody is so isolated, right? You're in your, you look at your little box in the morning when you get up, and then you get in your little box and you drive to work, and you go sit in your little box all day, and then you get in your little box, and you come home. And we're missing that connection where everybody feels like they're part of a team. Now, ironically enough, when something like a pandemic happens, or a world war or something like that, you notice how people come together, and you notice how everybody plays a role. Like he talks about during the Blitzkrieg, that like the crazy guy in the village is driving an ambulance. You know what I mean? He's got purpose now.
Yeah.
And so when we are in a situation like this, And when soldiers are in situations of extreme stress and, you know, you're on an outpost in the middle of Afghanistan or something like that, the weirdest part about it is after they leave and after they get out, and they were getting shot at, you know, every other day. And, you know, I mean, it was life or death. They're constantly on pins and needles and everything like that. They asked all those soldiers to a man, if you could go back right now to that situation out in the middle of a desert where people are trying to kill you, but you're part of this tribe. Every single one of them said yes, and that they had a hard time finding their place in the outside world because everybody was so individual and it wasn't built around the tribe where everybody plays a role and they're important. And I just think that right now during this pandemic, it's a great opportunity for people to come together and help and sort of feel like they're part of a tribe again, because everybody's in this together. You know, it's not everybody's not just doing their own thing anymore. We're kind of in this, and I think that that's the cool thing about veterans is they have that sense of service. And even a horrible situation, you know, like being in combat or whatever, it makes them feel alive and part of something bigger than them, that they would willingly sacrifice to go back to it and leave, you know, what we call the good life.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and that's these 2 points we just made are definitely more philosophical than this show's ever gone down before. But
We're getting deep.
you know, we've gotten a little bit away from cannabis, which is perfectly fine. But I see that too, and you know, with every pandemic, with every disaster that I've been alive for that this country has gone through, I think it's always amazing to see at, again, not the politics, right? Because when you watch
Mhm.
CNN, you watch Fox News, whatever you're watching, they're dividing the country based on whatever the political agenda is. But I think for the most part, the majority of America and the extremes are who's getting the exposure on the news, right? The extreme right, the extreme left. But I think the majority of the middle is coming together and helping each other. And you know, I give the example with 9/11. As tragic as 9/11 was, in the aftermath of 9/11, you never saw more people being patriotic. You never saw more American flags. You never saw more stickers that said these colors don't run. You know, it's unfortunate that because given the political leadership and people are not being patriotic during this time, because I think being a fan of the country is being more of a fan of the people in it than the government.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm going to stir up a ton of controversy by saying that. But if you don't look at Trump and the White House, and if you look, and not even the local governors and everything, but if you just look at the people, right? You
Mhm.
look at the businesses, you look at you know, folks like yourself with what you guys are doing with Cannabis Tech today and Cannabis Tech tomorrow, and putting that goodwill out there. No one forced you to do that, right? No one twisted your arm. And I'm going to give a shout out to somebody who I'm a fan of. It's a gentleman by the name of Greg Sugar. He founded the Tie Bar. He's on his second act. He's with a company called Bow Ties. And out of nowhere, he took his extra necktie material and started making PPEs. And there's a ton of companies around the country like that. Rogue Fitness, you know, Hook and Albert's a clothing company I look for. Companies you would never expect that just all of a sudden flipped the script and they started selling masks and everything else. And yes, there is an intention to make a little bit of profit, but where else do you see people coming together? It's always the people that I'm a fan of, and that's why I try to always remain patriotic and everything else. And actually, I'll give you that segue because you are one of those people that is taking your organization and doing something for the greater good with what you've done with Cannabis and Tech today, Cannabis and Tech tomorrow. Do you want to expand on that program a little bit?
Yeah, honestly, Todd, it just was our go-to move. We didn't really know what to do, and we knew that this was happening, and so, and it's really interesting too how it affected our people, right, inside of our company. So we've got, you know, 14, 15 employees, something like that. There were times where we had, you know, as many as 25, but we really have the right number of people and the right team members right now. And when we made the announcement to everyone that we were going to do Canatech today, Canatech tomorrow, which was just a bunch of initiatives to reach out and help cannabis businesses through this time. We also made a commitment to not lay anybody off at the company. And most of the senior people, in fact, all of the senior people took pay cuts in order to keep everybody on staff. So to me, when we decided to do Canatech today, Canatech tomorrow, and we did the same thing on Innovation and Tech today and ResTech, reach out to the community, create job boards, create free directory listings, offer webinars, consulting, you know, free advertising. We're giving away free subscriptions. I got people reaching out right now. Hey man, can we get one? we made that decision internally, and our people really rallied behind it. Like our employees, I think, loved it. I think what we did was we created a better bond within our company than we've ever had before by kind of sacrificing a little bit to go through this. And so I don't know what's going to be on the other side. You know, the whole idea of Canatech today, Canatech tomorrow is we're here for you today, but we're going to be here tomorrow when you are. And we're just going to roll the dice and assume that doing the right thing will pay off. But I will tell you that internally, it means a lot to the people in our company to know that not only they get to keep their job for a few more weeks, but that we're trying to do something. We're trying to be good members of the community. And I think that that is how you really build that corporate culture. You know, kind of like they say, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And we're not the only
Yeah.
ones doing it. There's a lot of other companies out there that we're seeing that are doing things where they're giving away their services and their time and stuff like that. So this isn't about us. This is just about the fact that something worked for us, and it could work for some of the people that are watching here.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, and I think it's absolutely necessary. And Robert and I are going to follow up with you to see how Cannabis Lab can help, especially here in Florida. You know, we have, you know, some of our sponsors like Trulieve and Grow Healthy and AltMed and Rise, they're hiring, right?
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that people across the country are aware of those jobs. And Florida is a great place to live. We have no state income tax, so everybody
My
come
heart
down here
is
and
in
work.
Florida. I got a house in Palm Harbor.
There
I,
you go,
I
man.
love Florida.
You're not too far from the grow facilities. I think we mentioned that on your podcast.
Hmm.
You know, I got to be honest with you. I got lucky. I was about to start my research for our interview today, and clearly you can tell I haven't done much. But you did a Facebook Live, so I'm like, I'm going to shortcut this and just watch the interview he's on today and try not to steal anything. I think it was you were with Razzle this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give that guy credit. He was standing through the whole interview.
So I mean, he was chopping wood and carrying water, man. I mean, that's that's a tough way to do the whole thing standing there. But yeah, Brian and Razzle, those guys are great.
Very cool, man. So we've got people on their soapbox. I'm sure people are yelling at us based on our opinions on veterans and everything else. Let's try to get into some fun stuff here. So one of the things that I always like seeing again, and I've talked about is the companies that are truly innovating, whether it's just in general or as a part of COVID-19. So, you know, I would love to understand what are some of your favorite innovations that you've seen in the cannabis industry that are just kind of like, okay, that's really cool. I think that's going to be big. And if you want to go further, it can be COVID related or it can just be in general at first.
It's a great question. I think that one of the things that I'm noticing that is really cool is the fact that businesses are adjusting their sales to what's going on. In other words, you know, we talked about this before. A lot of sales are face to face, and in order to keep commerce going and keep the industry going or whatever, these salespeople have adapted, and these companies have figured out, okay, listen, if we can't fly there and we can't do things face to face, how can we do business? So I think that's cool to see that companies are sticking it out. And think about it. People are stuck at home. You've got two choices. You can be home and you can twiddle your thumbs, or you can say, okay, how can I get business done during this time? And I think that that's cool to see companies that have pivoted. I also mentioned earlier the fact that we've got a lot of companies out there that are making PPE or making hand sanitizer or something like that. I heard from one company that does extraction equipment that they can't get some of the chemicals they need for extraction because it's all being used for hand sanitizer right now. So everybody along the supply chain and these companies too have pivoted and have kind of, I don't know, found their groove and figured out how to get in and play a role and do something. And I just think it's fascinating, especially because the cannabis industry has always been sort of looked at with a black eye. It's always been kind of
Yeah.
looked down upon. It's like, oh, you're stoners and you're this and that and the other. Man, cannabis is coming through and being innovative as hell.
You know, I think I've shared this opinion, maybe with you, maybe with a lot of people on the show, but my opinion is that right now during this pandemic, the cannabis industry has been giving almost like a probationary leave, right?
Hmm.
It had the stoner stigma associated with it. There was a lot of arguments against it. You know, people were on the fence. It was kind of like, oh, this stoner industry is coming up. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and it becomes deemed essential. And these companies, like you said, they're having to scramble to continue to innovate within the regulatory environment at which they're held to. And to me, they're being put into the spotlight now to say, okay, cannabis industry, we're giving you a chance to show us how legitimate you are, to show us how you're going to help people, to show us how you're going to innovate, how you're going to operate. And by the way, we're tying one hand behind your back. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping that because they've been deemed essential but left out of a lot of the federal relief programs, that it's going to bring attention to this industry, at least from a banking standpoint, and get access to banking because they went through this pandemic. They followed the rules. Now, if all of a sudden we peel back the layers and we see a lot of cannabis companies cut corners and broke the rules in order to stay open, it's over. I think it's going to be very detrimental to us. But if, we look and we go through this pandemic and we're getting medication to people and they're helping, and, you see people benefiting from it long term, given the situation, I would like to think that the people on Capitol Hill will say, you know what? During a very bad time in this economy, the cannabis industry stayed open. It kept its store open. It stayed strong. It grew. And not only did it grow, it supplied jobs in areas that needed them. I would like to think that the people on Capitol Hill would at least give us a chance to operate legitimately.
I want a name, Todd. I want one name from one person in Congress that when they were deciding that they were going to roll out these, money for small businesses and these forgivable loans for not laying people off and everything like that. I want a name, and hopefully somebody that's watching can give it to us. I want to know who said, but we can't include the cannabis companies. We've got to take them out. Take the cannabis companies out. I mean, think about it. Why? Why, of all the industries out there and all of the, questionable industries, and there's, there's alcohol, there's, there's breweries, there's, gun manufacturers, there's a whole litany of different industries that are out there. Who was the person that said yes, but the cannabis businesses should not be eligible for any of this? I mean, I guess it's because they don't have banking. Is that pretty much why? It would have been too murky, you think?
I think it's because it's federally illegal, right? So
Yeah.
these are federal loan programs, and because it's federally illegal, that's pretty much the reason why.
Yeah.
Um, my chair's stuck on a piece of tile, so I look like I'm trying to shimmy here. Um,
But
but
there are
yeah,
states.
it's
There are states that are actually doing their own. Didn't I just see that there are some states that are doing their own loan programs for cannabis
and
companies because they've been left out?
and as they should, as you and I
Yeah.
have said several times, the cannabis companies are hiring, right? So here,
Mhm.
you've got a lot of people that are in the service industry, people that worked at hotels, people that worked at restaurants, people that worked, in all these different locations. It's not like the cannabis company is Google, right? And they're opening up an office and they're saying, okay, you need to have a computer science degree, and or if you don't, you need to know how to code, or you need to have some kind of specialty. Right? If you worked in hospitality, if you worked in a restaurant, if you worked at a hotel, you can work in the cannabis industry and you would probably thrive. And that's what our industry needs, right? So when you have an area like where I live in South Florida that is dependent on tourism, and a lot of people in the tourism industry have lost their jobs, and you have the ability for companies like Trulieve and Grow Healthy and AltMed and Rise to give an opportunity to those people, why would you not want to help them?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Before this happened, what was unemployment? 2%,
I think
3%.
2, 3, 4, something like that. I should probably watch the news more.
Yeah. No, don't. It's not good for you. Um, And don't smoke sativa and watch pandemic news. Never ever do that. I'm here to advise the audience that that is a recipe for extreme paranoia. So don't do that. But think about it. Before this happened, unemployment was 2-3%. So how did you get talent? You basically had to get somebody to leave their job, or you had to get lucky because they were in between jobs, or something like that. Now with what you just said, a lot of hospitality people, a lot of layoffs and stuff like that. I'm telling anybody that's listening right now, you can get some superstars and add them to your team that maybe weren't available a few months ago. So we're over here, we're looking for writers, we're looking for an editor, creative types, business development type people. And I guarantee you, there are a lot of good people available right now. So for companies that are listening, you can add some great talent right now by tapping into that job market out there. And, hospitality to the cannabis industry is not a bad transition.
No, it's not. And I want to take a moment. I was actually watching our Facebook Live on the wrong channel. I was watching on Robert's personal channel. I want to give a shout out to Rita Lynn Lawrence. Thank you for all the comments. I'm glad you're watching. And then Jennifer Perdomo. I know you, Jennifer. I appreciate you guys out there. Apparently, they're loving our conversation. They're loving, your veteran history and even the book that you plugged too. So
Feel
we've
Good
got a few
Friday.
fans
Thank
going on
you.
right now.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, and cheers, by the way. We are having a cocktail during this happy hour episode of Elevate Your Grind. It's going better than I thought it was. I thought if we started drinking, it might go off the rails. So we talked a little bit about innovation. I think one of the coolest things that I've seen, and to plug my show, is we did an episode with Christopher Jensen of Mana Supply, and not to take anything away from the awesome companies that we have down here in Florida, but Chris had an old bank building and he actually created a drive-through, right? And it's really cool because, the regulations in Maryland said that they had to make the purchase within the dispensary. So he actually has these really quick whoosh, whoosh garage doors that you drive up, whoosh, the garage doors come down, you make your transaction and whoosh, they open up and then you leave. And, they have the old vacuum tubes and everything else. And I'm like, that is just really, really cool that you could do that. And then, beyond this is not a COVID-19 innovation, but it just blows my mind. And it's funny, I was talking to my next door neighbor about this, and when I told him that there's cannabis delivery, he's like, really? I go, yeah, I got one coming in 10 minutes, man. And he's like, how does that work? And I think it's amazing that I'm at a point in time in my life that I can go to a website, look at a menu, add it to cart, and within 24 hours, for the most part, it's at my door.
And we didn't
blows
have
my mind
delivery.
that's where we are.
Yeah, and we didn't have, okay, you were asking earlier about innovation. We didn't have delivery in Colorado. Colorado's got everything, right? I mean, we've got craft brews, we've got 300 days of sunshine a year, we've got, legal cannabis. We were blazing way before everybody else, but for some weird reason.
And you guys were one of the first to decriminalize psilocybin too.
Yeah. Freaking Denver, man. We're pretty awesome here. But I
think Denver's weird, not Austin.
Couldn't have a delivery service, right? Like it's like every state's got these weird, rules or laws. You're not really sure where they came from. But during this time now, because of COVID, now I guess they can deliver weed here. And the same thing is, let's talk about restaurants for a second. Talking about the pivot and the innovation. Restaurants, they can't have people sit there anymore, but the ones that went all in on pickup and delivery are at least, doing something right now. And I think it's funny that you can get alcohol to go. That was never a thing before. Never. I mean, unless you snuck out with it.
So, I don't know if you've seen it. Hold on, my sound is off here, so I don't know if I'm talking over you, but I don't know if you've seen it, but the OG Cannabis Cafe out in LA, you can actually go there and pick up both food and cannabis together. It's absolutely incredible, and that's what they're doing for COVID-19 during this whole social distancing thing. I mean, literally, you're going to a restaurant, you're getting a meal, you're getting your cannabis, and you can take it to go. It's incredible.
That's civilized. That's very civilized.
We need to get there. So we've touched on innovation. One of the things that I really always like to talk about, because there are a lot of them in this industry, and you're probably as much of an expert as anybody on it, are events, right? Cannabis and Tech Today is a big part of a lot of the major events out there. MJ BizCon, the Benzinga conferences. Listen, I see your colleague Dave Van Neal everywhere. Sometimes he just shows up at my house randomly to say hi, which I love Dave to death. And you guys are a big supporter of the Cannabis Lab conference that we have at the end of the year too. What are some of your favorite conferences to attend, and what do you think? What's the most underrated one that you've seen that you think could use a little bit more love?
Oh man, that's tough. That's like saying which is your favorite kid, because everybody knows we all have a favorite
next
kid.
Question.
Yeah, we all know that there is a favorite kid, right? I mean, let's just be real. If you've got more than one, no. I love MJ Biz because of the pizzazz. Vegas, it's there, it's huge. It's not as big as CES, but MJ Biz to me is kind of the standard setter, and everybody knows about that. A lot of business gets done, a lot of faces to see. I think that as far as under the radar, that you don't notice as much. The Emerald Science Conference that we just went to was top notch. The setting couldn't have been better. I mean, you're surrounded by the ocean and San Diego. And by the way, events where they're held, that kind of matters. Um,
Yeah.
so that is a cool event. I think the Cannabis World Congress events. There's some of them that are really that have been really good. There were some of them that were a little slower, but I've been to a couple of them, and there was a lot of commerce going on. I mean, let's be honest. Is it better to go to a show with tons of people, or is it better to go to a show with the right people? You know what I mean? As far as getting business done, I think that's a factor. Do you want to go to the biggest party in town, or do you want to go to a medium-sized party? Or something small and intimate. What's your flavor? I think the key is getting business done, right? Is that the most important, and getting education, the most important thing at events?
Yeah, I agree. For me, I would love to get more education when I go to events, but
Mhm.
me being in sales and marketing my whole time, I think, my main goals when I go are networking. And unfortunately that takes away from sitting in on a lot of the panels, which have been great. To your point, I've always been a big fan of the medium-sized events, right? The
Mhm.
events that, listen, MJ BizCon is great. You can probably, if you try hard enough, get time with almost anybody because they're all there, right?
Yeah.
But that's not my strong suit. I'm not good at waiting through 30,000 people and cold calling people to try to set up some of their time. I personally like a lot of the mid-sized events. Like I think the NCIA does a great job with a lot of their
Yes.
events. And frankly, if I can toot our own horn, the Cannabis Lab conference is really one of the best ones I've been to. And I don't say that because I sit here and I host this podcast. I say that because I went to the first conference and now I sit here and host this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with Cannabis Lab before that conference happened. I showed up to a couple meetings. I wasn't even a member. That conference really changed my mind. And that's why I'm sitting here interviewing you today.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think that it depends on what you're looking for, but I think the events, all of them, Cannabis Science Conference, the Canacons, the NoCo Hemp Expo, you know what I mean? Like these events, all in their way, are super important to the industry, and I want to see them, figure out how we can do this as soon as possible because I know they're all itching. I mean, there's a lot of apprehension out there for businesses that are driven entirely by events. And that's something that is different about our model is that we are not driven by events. It's not our big revenue stream because we don't do events. We support other people's events. But I want to see where we can get back to having events because um, it's good for business and it's good for the events. But until then, I think you're going to see some virtual events, and I think that we're going to find a way to where we can pivot, like we were talking about earlier, but still get business done. Some of these virtual event platforms, and I know this isn't where anybody wants to go, but nobody wanted to have a pandemic. You
No.
don't always get to choose what's going on here, right? You don't get to pick the weather. You just got to decide how you're going to dress for it. And I think
Yeah.
that, there are going to be some more online events. In fact, we're talking to a couple people right now about doing something here really quick that would, kind of create a virtual conference. And I think that it's something that has a future. I've been to a couple of them already, and it's not the same, but it's not terrible either.
Well, I do get to dress a whole lot more comfortably to the virtual events, but yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And again, this goes back to the innovation is to see companies like Benzinga and MJ Biz Daily and ArcView, and even us at Cannabis Lab transitioning these in-person events to virtual events. And I want to give everybody extreme credit, right? Because we didn't have to do this before, right? Not all of us know audio, video. Not all of us had some kind of digital platform beforehand. And I want to give hats off to everybody who just decided to try it, right? And I hope this doesn't come off negatively, but yesterday I went to go attend Benzinga's Cannabis Happy Hour, and right at 2 o'clock, the video wasn't there, right? It didn't work. And hats off to them. They got an email out, said, hang with us. It actually looked, I don't know what happened, but it got pulled off YouTube. But they didn't know that was going to happen, but they still went on with it, and they still put on a great event. It was very educational, but to know that you have to do these events, and you basically have to become a TV production company with no experience in it. I'm really happy to see everybody doing that and pulling it off. And I mean, you guys are someone who are pulling it off, just as well, if not better than anybody else.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think you're totally right. I think people they find their way. Like Jeff Goldblum said, the life finds a way. We are resourceful people, and I think that the entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry are a special breed of resourceful. And I think that that comes through in the work that is done in the circles that we run in. We are some resourceful cats, and I think that lends itself to a situation like this right now, big time.
Yeah, I think the difference between the entrepreneurs in this space versus other spaces is there's a lot more focus on execution, right? And then that's exactly what we're seeing. Is people are just doing it, right? They're not planning, they're not making excuses. They're just like, we got to try it. We got to try. We don't know if Zoom is going to work with Facebook Live. We don't know if this piece of program is going to cut out on us. We don't know how we're going to transition between panels, but you see people trying it, and that's one of the coolest things that I've seen is people are just taking a stab. If it doesn't work, hey, we learned a lesson. We're going to move on. We're going to do it better last time. I mean, shit. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse, and it's my show, but even with our show, right? If you look at how we started off when we first got stuck in the house on COVID-19, you were looking at the corner of my office. You're looking at my bookshelf, and not that our set has really matured that much since then, but it looks a little bit more like a TV show. We've gotten some great guests, and we have a conversation like this. And the point of all that, and the point of this conversation, I hope people take away is, don't be afraid to just take a chance, to just try it, right? I've been in sales and marketing my whole life. I've never sat in front of a camera and preached. I've never done radio. I've never done AV. And then, starting in January with minimal help, we launched a podcast, right? Myself and Robert. And I really want to give a shout out to my friend Evan Bott from Potent Brands. Evan has done a phenomenal job editing the show. So when you guys watch the recording of this show, when you see the name badges and the logos and all the audio editing and everything else, shout out to Evan. He's done a great job with that. But we're just three people that figured it out and did it. And now we have a show that, 12 people are watching, and we're doing okay.
I tweeted something out last night, and if anybody's listening, make sure you follow Canatech Today on Twitter, all the social media channels and stuff like that. Stay in the conversation. But I tweeted last night to follow up with what you said, Todd. Absolutely. Right now is the time for ready, fire, aim. Okay. I mean, you need to and I'm telling you right now, for any of these entrepreneurs that are listening right now, go collect that unemployment. And while you're collecting that unemployment, you go plan your next business. You go plan your next, hustle. You go plan to make your mark, make your dent in the universe, because right now is a great time for you to try something, and don't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean? You have nothing to lose. You're in a pandemic, and listen, it's a horrible situation. It's obviously, a lot of uncertainty. I mean, it's a horrible situation, but at the same token, it's a great time for you to have some time to focus on your business or on your idea or on that thing you've been talking about doing. Now is a great time to do it. And I would encourage everybody out there to just remember, you can get a hold of everyone right now. One thing that you need if you're going to get your business going is you need to be able to talk to other decision makers. They're all home.
Yeah.
Everybody is home right now. Everybody is at home right now, and they're looking to do some business, or they're looking to get a nice call with a good idea. And so if anybody's listening to this right now and you've been thinking about starting that business, you've been thinking about making that idea become a reality, I'm telling you, there was a lot of people that started big businesses and got rich in 2008. And there's going to be a lot of millionaires, and there's going to be a lot of great businesses that are going to get launched right now during this time.
Yeah, and if we can keep going down our obscure reference rabbit holes, I mean, the Italian Renaissance was right after the Black Plague. You had Isaac Newton discovered gravity during the Spanish flu. That's probably wrong. That seems a little bit too recent in history. But, during some kind of quarantine, and you can tell how great of a history major I am. But there has been a lot of, unfortunately, going through pandemics is terrible, but there's been a lot of good that have come out the other side. And, it's no secret, I'm a fan of Cody Sanchez, and on her LinkedIn the other day, she She posted a question on how people get noticed to get hired. And, I commented on it. I said, start a podcast, start writing, start just putting your knowledge out there and showing the world what you can do. And then on top of that, network, right? Obviously, we can't go to events right now, but if you think about it, right, you can use your LinkedIn as your own sales page. You start connecting with the people that you want to reach out to, the people that you want to hire them. And instead of just firing messages away at them because everybody else is doing that right now, post an article, write an article, put a
Yeah.
video out there, show your knowledge. And, maybe they won't see the first one or the second one you do, but maybe the third, fourth, fifth, right? The algorithm will hit and eventually they're going to see some of the content that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
This show helped me stay in the cannabis industry. So, I know we're preaching a lot, but I really hope that people take that away. Like, Chuck and I are not geniuses, right? We're as much as you think we are. We're not geniuses. We just we 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 we
Wait, we're
took
not?
we took the at bats and we took the swings.
Yeah. Let me add to that though, because I think that this is important, and I think this is a little bit inspirational, at least for me. This is my jam right here.
Yeah.
If you want to go work for a company that you've always wanted to work for, now obviously they can't be, laying off right now, and it's got to be a company that's doing business right now and is still essential. But this is a great time to go and do it. And I'll never forget. We went to we had a sales guy come in for an interview once. And after the interview was over, we're like, yeah, okay, we'll get back to you. And then he followed up the next day with a phone call. And then he followed up the day after with a phone call. And we still weren't really sure or anything like that. Well, the third day, he said, hey, listen, if you hired me, I just want to show you these are 100 companies that I'd like to call. I've already done the research, and I think these would be great prospects for your projects right here. And, we walked into the CEO's office. We had a list of 100 companies that this guy had looked up that made sense for our project. And we walked in and showed the CEO. I'm like, what are we supposed to do with this guy? They're like, freaking hire him. So there is an opportunity that if you want something bad enough, it's almost like manifest destiny. You can put your mind to it, but you've got to bring value. You've got to bring value. Right now at this time, hiring decisions are going to be scrutinized. Budgets are going to be scrutinized. It's going to be really important that companies are making smart decisions. But if you bring enough value, and you tell them, listen, I will be one of your best, and you sincerely mean it, and you plan to do that, sky's the limit right now. Whether you start your own business or you go work for somebody else, there definitely are some good opportunities here.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I know I made the joke before we started the podcast when we poured our drinks that this is the Joe Rogan experience for cannabis, and we're far from it. But I listened to his show, and that's a lot of what he talks about. Is I hope people take this opportunity to really kind of reflect on themselves and do what they want to do on the other side of this, right? Not just what they have to do, right? Life is short, and you should want to come to work every day and enjoy what you do, because you're going to do it for way too long to be miserable at it. And I think we're in a great industry for this. And I hope people take this positive message away from it. Right. We made the best of it. You can see Chuck's at his house. I'm at my house here, and we're still trying to get as much content out into the world that we can. Dude, we've been talking for about an hour, and there's one last thing that I want to touch on that has absolutely nothing to do with anything that we talked about today. So it's going to seem like a very weird transition, but this is a part of the industry that I'm extremely interested in, right? We saw CBD and hemp pop up quickly and spread like wildfire, but it really stayed on that CBD side. Now, you had reminded me about this side of the business during your interview with Razzle this morning, and I hope they appreciate the shout outs here. But the industrial hemp side of the business. So you being with cannabis in tech today and innovation in tech today, are you seeing a crop of businesses pop up around industrial hemp? And then how far away, in your opinion, am I from getting my hemp straw at Starbucks? Because I hope when this is all over, one of the silver linings is I don't have to use another paper straw ever again in my life.
Yeah, right. Paper straws. What's more uncomfortable, paper straws or masks that dig in the back of your ears? I apparently have some masks that don't fit, and so I'm just like I'm in pain as I'm walking through the grocery store. No, but seriously, I think industrial hemp is poised to be as big as anything moving forward. We were here in Denver. We've got Greeley, Colorado, which is just a hop, skip, and jump from Denver. And a lot of people don't realize that it is a mecca for industrial hemp. In fact, shameless plug, we're going to feature Greeley as kind of one of our innovation zones in the next issue of Cannabis and Tech Today. But it is going to be huge. And I think that especially coming out of this pandemic, being able to turn hemp into products and things that we can use right now is going to be one of the fastest areas of growth. I think more states are going to come online, and I think it's going to be big. And I think as to your question, probably you might be a couple years away from that hemp straw, but it's coming. I mean, it's going to be there pretty soon. There's going to be a lot of awesome products that are made from hemp, and I think it's going to do a lot of good things for the economy, as well as it's going to create a lot of innovation.
Yeah, and I think the general theme of our conversation today is, I would hope that anybody watching this takes something away, that the cannabis industry is so much more than just the traditional stoner culture that you're used to seeing, right? And maybe some of that still exists in California, and that's just a California thing, but there's so much good coming out of this industry. Benefits from the medical side. I mean, you can see I've actually got a few products here from Rise today, and I purposely put them on the desk because they're not flower, right? They are. I think there's a tincture here and some capsules that that's the closest we're going to start getting to uniform doses. And I really hope that people that are not in this industry, people that have a negative connotation about this industry, take the time to really educate themselves on it. And we can plug you guys, Cannabis and Tech Today. It's cannatechtoday.com, and I'll let you plug it in a second. But go there, do some research, and really understand what our industry is all about, right? You guys do a great job focusing on the business side of this industry and really not the lifestyle side, and I commend you for that. So.
Well, I appreciate it, Todd. And again, if anybody out there, if you've got a cool story about people that you see that are innovating or that are helping out right now, shoot us an email. We've got a link right there, and people are bringing in, I got to tell you, some really cool stories. And so, don't be afraid to reach out. Like I said, Cannabis and Tech Today, we are here. We want to help the industry. We want to destigmatize while we inform and inspire. And we think that it's important people have a good place to go to get solid information that they know that they can count on. So, there's a lot of great brands out there, but we're really excited to be a part of this community, and we want to be a part of driving the industry forward as we all get through this thing together. But man, it's a pleasure to be here. I love chopping it up with you. I feel like we could talk for a long time, Todd.
We absolutely can. This
Todd.
is technically like the second hour of our discussion because it's kind of a continuation from your show,
Yeah.
the Cannabis Tech Talks, which I really enjoy, and I've listened to more than just the podcast with myself on it. But let's get. You know what? We're coming up on 6 o'clock. I've actually got to start putting my daughter to bed, so I'm going to get out of here. So let's do the plugs and enjoy the weekend.
Absolutely. That sounds good. Make sure that you just go subscribe to the newsletter, do something like that. And most importantly, go for that dream. If you've got something that you want to do right now, you've got that business idea, go for it. Take that chance right now. You won't regret it. And if you've got questions or you want to get some advice or anything like that, just shoot me an email. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of on LinkedIn. And yeah, man, pleasure being here. And we let's do this again sometime.
We will absolutely do it again. Maybe we'll do it live in person at an event when we can, because that would be a ton of fun. And let's see how good I can do this outro Friday at 6 p.m. So thank you, everybody. Apparently screwed up already. Thank you, everybody, again for watching Elevate Your Grind. My name is Todd Rosales. We got into a very, very preachy mode in this, but I hope people were able to take away some solid lessons from this episode. Again, coming up, if you really enjoyed listening to Charles, check him out. You can find him on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you find your podcast at Cannabis Tech Talks. You can go ahead and find us in all those same locations. So subscribe to both because you're going to like both of them. Find us with Elevate Your Grind. We are on YouTube. If you want to check out more of our interviews, YouTube, Elevate Your Grind. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Canna Business Group. And if you want to join our events, we have monthly memberships coming on. You get access to all of our digital content, access to our membership directories and everything else. You can find that at www.joinclab.com. If you want more of Charles, see him, see him flex his media muscles on a great panel. That is going to be Thursday, May 14th at 6 p.m. If you are not a member of C-Lab and you want to come, just go to the website, sign up for the event, put you're a guest of Charles Warner or a guest of Todd Rosales. We'll let you into that event for free. Listen, I learned a lot. This is very inspirational for me. Charles, if you want to join me in a toast, we've got a little bit left here just to kind of sign off. Hey, we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's both, it's upsetting and inspirational to watch. I want to toast everybody who's an essential worker right now. And it's not just the healthcare workers. You guys are doing a great job. I want to thank the grocery store workers. I want to thank the dispensary associates, the delivery people, the people from UPS, FedEx, the Postal Service, anybody who is still working during this pandemic to make sure that the rest of us can feel as normal as possible. I want to thank you. And I know maybe this seems bad that I'm sitting here in my house with my family safe enjoying this, but it's because of you that we're able to do this. So I hope that didn't get too political. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers,
have a good
everybody.
one, and enjoy your weekend.
Peace.